my topic on the Bermuda Triangle and why it should be considered one of the most dangerous areas in the world. So a couple other names for the Bermuda Triangle is the Voodoo Sea, the Devil's Triangle, the Limbo of the Lost, and the Twilight Zone, which obviously aren't like really nice sounding names, kind of scary. It's located in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, between Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda during the triangular shape. On December 5th, 1945, there was 5 Grumman tactical ballistic missile Avenger torpedo bomber planes, which is kind of a long word, but that's what they were. And they were flying like in an arrow kind of formation with a senior pilot in front, and he was supposed to like really know what he was doing and like know like the navigation and stuff. And following, the 4 other pilots were very qualified people, and like obviously like they got 400 hours of training, so they were really supposed to know what they were doing. And they were out kind of like doing like target practice and like navigation practice for like when they were to like go into action. So they flew out of Fort Lauderdale in Florida, and Fort Lauderdale got a report saying that the compasses were malfunctioning, which is kind of like weird, but it happens. And there was no evidence of a storm or unfavorable weather conditions, so there's really no room for like human error or why like anything should have went wrong. They really shouldn't have got lost or anything, but the senior pilot, like obviously he said he got lost, he didn't know where he was, so it's kind of weird. So after like Fort Lauderdale didn't hear back from him, like the malfunction of the compasses were the last thing that Fort Lauderdale heard from Flight 19. They sent out a search aircraft to find them, and after the search aircraft left port, they also didn't hear back from them, and they never returned either. So these 2 like disappearances kind of started modern day theories about like the Bermuda Triangle. So why is it dangerous? They found marine biologists found something called a witch ground or witch's hole like in the Bermuda Triangle, which is ultimately just a really big hole in the ocean. And it's 150 kilometers northeast of Aberdeen, and it's covered with craters, and in the middle of these craters there's like holes where scientists are like saying that the methane bubbles are coming out of, which methane bubbles are like really dangerous. We'll get into that in a minute. And they can like prove this because the craters are actually really rough in texture as opposed to like the rest of the seabed where it's like really smooth. So the rough texture is kind of like proving that the methane bubbles are coming through the craters. Methane gas bubbles are like really, really dangerous. Methane gas is produced from decaying organisms in the seabed of the ocean, and it can pretty much penetrate through the sediment and go into the water, and it's really dangerous. So like the methane can also like not only travel through the water, but it can go above the surface of the water into the air, and it's really flammable. So that's kind of why it's dangerous to planes, because the heat of the engine of the airplane, it can ignite a spark, which can like kind of blow the plane out and make it go into the water and like crash and everything. So there's just like a really quick video on how methane, water, and fire kind of react together. It's from a documentary.
Just give it a second. Whoa.
So that just kind of shows how like flammable methane is. And not only that, but methane gas decreases the density of the water, which ultimately has a really big effect on buoyancy of a boat. So it can really easily sink a ship. And this is another video of a scientist kind of experimenting and showing you how like gas can
With root cycling technology and a clever self-adjusting cleaner head, you may have to empty the bin more often. Now with the Dyson Tangle-Free Turbine Tool, DC41 Animal Complete.
The test is modeled after the largest known landslide in the Triangle. It happened over 10,000 years ago.
It's about 190 miles long and about 30 miles wide. It should have released a huge amount of gas.
underlying theory is that bubbles reduce the density of water, with deadly consequences for anything floating on the surface.
So you have here a demonstration where the water in this column represents the waters of the Bermuda Triangle, and this little boat represents a ship that might get sunk. As we put the boat in, you can see that it floats nicely. And when I blow through this tube, that will simulate a massive release of methane from the seafloor. What just happened was we created a mixture of air and water, which is actually less dense than the water alone, and that could no longer support the weight of the boat, so the boat sank.
I thought that was kind of cool, just like show how it's saying. And another thing is that as methane bubbles travel like towards the surface of the water, they increase in size, and this is due to the pressure. Like when they're closer to the bottom of the sea, the pressure is so great that they're like really like contracted and constricted. But as they move towards the surface of the water, the pressure like gets like decreases, so it can expand and produce more methane. And it's kind of like how you have to decompress an airplane or a submarine before you go in it, so your lungs can adjust to it. Another thing that is kind of like weird about the Bermuda Triangle is the effect it has on compasses. Bermuda Triangle is one of the 2 places in the world. I think the other place is Death Sea on the coast of Japan, in which a compass points to true north instead of magnetic north. And it's kind of weird because the compass like